feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. I'm your co-host Ted Jenkin here with my co-host Lee Heisman. Just a second, we'll bring in our guest, Briana Marbury. She's the executive director of the Interledger Foundation, and we're going to talk about this Interledger protocol and what's happening with the foundation. It's just really cool stuff as we think about this world of Web 3.0 and everything that's coming up inside of our country. As always, if you're watching the broadcast today, you can get the Shrimp Tank at Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, or Spotify. We're getting 25,000 downloads a month. And the Shrimp Tank is killing it across the country right now. We are expanding in cities like Seattle and Denver, Colorado, and Boca Raton and Charleston, South Carolina, and so many other places where people are inspired by CEOs and entrepreneurs that are starting for-profit and non-for-profit companies, small businesses that are really just a side hustle, and large businesses that may go public one day. And it's an exciting thing to see in America. And you should make sure that you go to our YouTube channel at Shrimp Tank Podcast. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and make sure that you click that notifications bell. Without doing that, you aren't going to get the great videos of all of our entrepreneurs every week. Of course, try to catch some of the recent episodes we did with Dr. Michael Bruce, the #1 sleep doctor in the country, Tony Horton, founder of P90X, and so many other great entrepreneurs across the country. So I want to get kicked off on here, and I read through everything on your website, and it's exciting, and at the same time, it can be very confusing for people of what this all exactly is. So would you mind at a high level, at least introducing people what the Interledger Foundation is and what the mission is and what you're all doing?
Yes, thank you so much, Ted and Lee. Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to talk about Interledger. I'm very passionate about what we do. And yes, it is confusing. I was confused when I first read about it. I was like, when my friend told me about the position, I said, I went to the website. I was like, this sounds exciting, but what is this? I have absolutely no idea. And back when I first started, the website was just for developers. And so it was, if you think it's confusing now, it was extra confusing. So basically what we do at the foundation, the Interledger protocol is a currency network. And basically we try to make sending money as easy as it is to send an email. And that's what the protocol does. The foundation supports the protocol, and we're advocates of it. I come on and speak to wonderful people like you and try to spread the word about what it is. And we give out grants and awards to people who are trying to build on the protocol. But to go back to what that means about trying to make payments, sending payments as easy as an email, think about how easy it is for you to send an email to me right now. You can just have my email address. You don't need to know whether I have Spectrum, whether I have Comcast or anything like that. You don't need to know my internet provider. You can just have that one name and send it to me. Well, the infrastructure, the financial infrastructure has not kept up with the technological advances. And it's just really slow and clunky, and it's complicated. And then when you talk about trying to send to people, say, outside of the country, it gets even more complicated. And so what we're trying to do is simplify sending payments to make it just as easy as it is to send an email.
Well, Briana, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, Ted, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Lee.
Well, so I have a question. Ted always, which is wonderful, digs into the details of the business. And I want to dig into the person for just a moment and find out, how do you start this? Because as you said, it is complex and we want you to simplify it as you're doing for us. But go back into how someone like you starts this business, or starts becoming a part of the business.
Right. So I didn't start it. I am the founding CEO now of the Interledger Foundation. And it was started years ago with Stefan Thomas and Evan Schwartz. And they just saw how sending payments was really difficult. And they came from the crypto world. And they saw like some of the limitations of crypto, or how hard it was getting things off of the blockchain and like into real life. And so they were trying to make sending payments a lot easier. And so they built the protocol based off of like the internet protocols, the Interledger protocol, internet protocol. And so that's how it all got started. How I got started with it is they were trying to find a neutral place to hold like the standards of and the trademarks and the patents because they wanted this to be open for everybody to use and to build on. And so they started the foundation. They're how are we going to get the name out there about Interledger? And we need a way to hold these patents and trademarks. We need a way to give out grants and awards to people. And so they started the foundation, and from there, that's how I became involved. My background is in accounting and finance. And so I was very passionate. When I came out of school, I worked for a large, I guess, a tech company, and I would just like, I felt like a cog in a wheel. And so I decided after I went to grad school, I really wanted to just focus on working at organizations where I made a difference. And so from there, I worked with foundations and nonprofits until I came across this awesome and amazing opportunity, which I had to learn all about as I was coming in. Lee, I was looking at your profile, and so you made a really dramatic switch, I think. So
From healthcare, you're saying?
yes.
Well, that was my next question because are you from the Detroit, Michigan area, or is that where
I
you went
am
to
from
school?
Detroit, Michigan. Yes.
Yeah, well, I think stereotypes are there for a reason, and I always think geographical stereotypes are so true because that location and area, every time I go there, I always just run into the nicest, most quality people. And it seems to fit and hold suit for yourself. Where Ted and I are from in Jersey, we could say New Jersey, Brianna.
Yeah.
You understand? We can talk more like this. You get the very authentic, the raw, the honest, respectful position. But I always thought Detroit, Michigan, that area is like the hardest working, very down to earth people. But like you said, I went from healthcare where I loved helping people. I didn't like that healthcare was a business. And what really turned me off was that healthcare, people were the products. And I would rather focus on people's health and wellness. And that's why I left that to get into the business world where, I could deal with products like products. But you actually you flipped the script and you went into this nonprofit world. What prompts you, not just in this current business, but what prompts you to come out of the business world into this nonprofit? What did you like about nonprofits?
I like that nonprofits were concerned with trying to make a difference in people's lives. They're trying to do something to help the community, whereas working for a corporation was just about making money for themselves and the shareholders, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But for me personally, I felt like I needed to have a connection to the work that I was doing. And so that's how I started working for nonprofits. Now, a lot of people have different ideas about nonprofits when you go to work for, oh, it's going to be easier and less stress working for a nonprofit. And that is absolutely not the case. I remember I worked with someone who came from a corporation, and she came and she said, I came here because I thought it was going to be a lot easier. Like, no, you have to wear so many different hats because a lot of times you have a smaller staff. And like for us, we're startups, so we have to wear a whole bunch of different hats.
I mean, in the fundamental in the name, Ted, I don't want to mean to monopolize the questions. You're dealing with a nonprofit organization. So the company's there to fund what the company's vision is. You still
Yes.
pay your employees and your staff, but there
Yes.
was not a lot of excessive amount of money there to have all the frou-frou and have all the excess. So most people are being pulled in 7 different directions, and you're, spread pretty thin to be at a nonprofit.
Yes. So that is true in I would say half and half of the nonprofits that I worked at. So we're in a very fortunate position where we are, say, like fully funded right now. So we have our initial endowment was $100 million. And so we were given all that in cryptocurrency, which when it was high, we liquidated most of it and still have some. So we're not as cash strapped as some of the smaller startup nonprofits are. And I have definitely been there and understand like the struggles. But yeah, so yeah, we're a little unique.
So I'm wondering here, because as people are listening to this and they want to think about pragmatically how this is all going to work, I guess the
Yes.
first thing is, it sounds like you're all believers that digital currency is an inevitability, no matter how it shakes out, what kind of currency. Is that right?
So yes, and the protocol is currency agnostic. So whether it's digital
Right.
currency or fiat currency, fiat meaning like the
Sure.
actual cash dollars that you have, the protocol is able to transfer any currency that you have, cryptocurrency, fiat currency, digital currency, a stable coin, whatever it is. The protocol is currency agnostic.
Why is it so hard for people to separate this notion of cryptocurrency and the notion of the blockchain? Because I'm sure in what you're doing, blockchain technology is so important, right? It isn't just the money itself, but every time people hear cryptocurrency in the news or media, all they think about is, well, it's all fraud. And you can tell people that the blockchain is no fraud, right?
Right, exactly. Jay, if you, I'm sorry, Ted, if you figure out a way to for me to explain that to people, I think that we would.
Well, Brianna, I've told people, listen, even though there's Sam Bankman-Fried and other things we've seen out
Yes,
there, it's not that cryptocurrency was fraudulent. It's that those people were fraudulent in
exactly.
cryptocurrency.
Exactly, exactly. And you have so many outside of cryptocurrency, you have other people who commit fraud, but those,
Right, right. Bernie
those
Madoff
specific
did it in
things
the
don't get a
securities
bad
business.
rap. Yeah. So
Well,
it's
it,
really
it
hard
doesn't
trying to pull
hurt
the
if I
two
may,
apart.
Brianna. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just echoing in what you guys said. It doesn't hurt. It hurts the case when you have the A-list celebrities and stars promoting something that also gets shown with fraud. So I was just defending your cause and what you were saying as well.
Yeah.
You
But I
know,
interrupted you.
I
No,
think
no, no worries.
I think what's so important about this, I just spent the last 9 months, I'm about to graduate Leadership Atlanta, and a program that looks at a lot of things that are going on in our city. And one of the things that was shocking to me, especially a city that, is half Black, is
Mhm.
that we are the lowest of low in this country for upward mobility. Atlanta finished at 4.5%. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that part of this protocols, you have people that are not even underbanked, they're just unbanked that are out there. And could you talk about how this kind of technology and protocol could just change the lives of people that simply, a lot of us never have to deal with it, like not being able to set up a bank account,
Yeah.
and how it might be able to help people across the country, not just here in my great city that where upward mobility is just horrific right now. How will it help people in the long term?
So it's several different ways that it can help people in the long term. And think about, as you said, people think about unbanked or poverty, and they think about third world countries. But what they don't realize is it's a huge problem in the United States as well. About 24% of adults are under or unbanked in the US. And talking about Detroit, where I grew up, it was really hard to get a bank account sometimes. And it wasn't even a bank in your area. Now they have a lot of online banks and different things like that. But if you say, for instance, if you have your account under a certain amount, they charge you fees. If you overdraft and you get, I guess, like blacklisted, you're not able to get an account. But one thing that mostly everybody has, especially here in the US, is a mobile phone. And you
Right.
have Cash App, you have Venmo, and if you're able to exchange cash that way, then if you're able to receive cash, exchange cash with businesses through these ways, then it dramatically
Yeah.
increases the amount of people who are able to participate in the digital economy. And I'm sorry, Ted, there's one more thing that I wanted to add about that. What the protocol can do, say a Venmo or Cash App has the protocol implemented in their systems, you would be able to exchange cash with people without having to get the other person's app. And if this was at a federal level, say for instance, when you had the COVID payments, that they were having a hard time distributing, because if you didn't have a bank account already on file with the IRS, they weren't able to get you your payments. However, if you had the Interledger protocol, you would be able to receive payments. So that's the way it can kind of open up systems to people who have been excluded from them.
Yeah, because the broad view of this is that you have people that live in countries like Cambodia that may have no access to banking systems, period.
Right.
And everybody in the world should have a way to be able to transact business with everybody else in the world. But in most people's backyards, isn't what ends up happening is that people that don't have a bank often get forced into situations to go to cash advance or
Yes.
check cashing places or shops that they have no idea what the interest rate is. And often the interest rate is not even under any governing law about what they
Right.
can set the interest rate. And that is what part people don't see in the money and banking system of, I always say, if there's generational wealth, there's generational poverty. And that's the reason part of it happens, right? Is because
Yeah.
people constantly are taking advantage of, no?
Exactly, exactly. And going back to my example in Detroit, because they don't have banks, on every corner, the easiest place to cash your check is a check cashing place, or you need some extra cash payday loan, where they have to pay those high interest rates and high fees, and you just need your money right now. So you don't care. It's like, okay, this is wrong, but I need my money now, so I pay it. And it's just really predatory and unfair, and it makes an already bad situation worse.
And Brianna, for viewers out there, again, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs, C-level executives, people that are really striving to better themselves in the world. For viewers out there that really maybe never, and I've done it. I've used a check cashing place in my younger years when I didn't have opportunities or
Same.
options. Would you describe, because we say high interest rate, but I don't think people really understand. If I have a $200 paycheck and I bring that to a check cashing place or to an area where I can do that, can you describe how much of that gets taken?
It can up to 20% sometimes that they take from people.
I mean, you
It,
literally work all day or all week. You get a $250 paycheck. Of a $200 paycheck,
Well,
you're walking away with $160.
Lee, the main issue is that, and this is great for entrepreneurs to know, is that certain things like credit cards have usury rates, right? And there are rates that do have some legal regulations, but a lot of those check cashing and pawn shop type operations don't fall under the same legislation. That's why you're like, how could I give them my gold and they charge me, 3 or 4% a month? It's because there's no real laws that govern them. And who do they prey on? They prey on people that don't have money or can't get access to a bank. And this is why there's this constant circle of it's like, it's not like people want to be poor,
Right.
but
Yeah.
when you don't have access to what this amazing program is, something like the Interledger protocol, you just don't have a way to transact. And where are you at the mercy of? Everybody else is going to take advantage of you. And that's the big problem.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, because I know this show is geared towards entrepreneurs, and at the foundation, one of our mandates is trying to bring more entrepreneurs, especially underrepresented entrepreneurs, into the tech ecosystem. And so what we do is we give grants to people who are building on the Interledger protocol. And giving them room to experiment with it and learn about it and try to make sending payments easier. So yeah, that's another thing that we do at the foundation is we give out grants
And Brianna, to be clear, if I'm incorrect, is this something like $12 million of grants?
14.
14 million, Ted.
Yeah.
I was only 2 million off, right? but I wanted to share that level of impact. When you speak of that, I love to give examples. That's why I gave that example of the check, because people don't realize I work for a week, I make $200, I'm giving up 15-20% of that, and I need that money, right? I need that money. In addition, when you speak of grants, you're not speaking of here's $1,000 or $500 grant. Your organization, it says 12. We need to update the website. It's $14 million.
Yeah.
Could you do me a favor and break it down a little bit? Because when you have someone in your position as CEO, you tend to just think, oh yeah, you just get grants, all right? And look at all this work that we've done. But if you could just step it back a little bit and explain, if you're an organization that is trying to promote, a minority group in the tech world, I used to own a technology firm, and the diversity of my firm, gender diversity, was always more male dominated. The industry was more male dominated. But any opportunity we could have to bring a female in, we obviously would jump on it for, adding more culture to our environment, of course. but
Yeah.
people don't realize. So how would they apply for that? What kind of grant size? Give a little more details.
Yeah, so what our grants vary each year based on, I say each year as if we've been in existence for a long time, but they vary based on the gaps in the ecosystem. So right now, what we're looking at is bringing more what we call nodes into the ecosystem. That might be a digital wallet if someone's interested in starting that. And we understand that this is difficult, complex stuff to figure out. And so we have our latest call for proposals comes in 3 stages. The first stage is just figure out what it would take to become a money license transmitter in whatever area you're trying to figure out. And that's basically a research grant for $75,000. And so then after, and it's for $75,000, and that's for a period of about 6 or 7 months. And so after that, if you're chosen to go to the next level, which means building the prototype, and a lot of people think that, well, I have to be a developer to know how to build the prototype myself if I'm an entrepreneur. No, you just have to be able to have an idea and put a team together that can build it. And so if you have, then the prototype stage comes, and that's up to 250,000. And so after that stage, then you're actually going live and you're pairing with another person that's in the network, another wallet, another neobank. And so that just depends on what your needs are, but that can be up to like $1 million. It just depends. And we introduce you as well to other people in the ecosystem who are interested in funding like really interesting projects as well.
Thank you for breaking that down, because it's important to understand the dynamics.
Yeah, and we even though this latest CFP has passed and the second phase is only open to people who are in the first one, we're going to be running that again in the cycle.
What about this, this whole notion of web monetization? Like, obviously this world of peer-to-peer services, people call it the gig economy. We saw it, I think, initially with gigantic companies like Fiverr and other companies like that. How does the Interledger protocol play into that with web monetization?
So one of the capabilities of the protocol is that it's able to like stream what's called micropayments. So it can do every second that you're looking at a website. If you're set up with web monetization as say like a web provider or blogger or something, it's able to stream payments to your account. So we've been looking at different models that would make sense for web monetization, different alternatives other than like advertising or paywalls, which have very low conversion rates. And think, for example, if so you say, all right, I want to go look at an article, you run into a paywall, but instead of a paywall and having to do a subscription for, a whole month, what if you're like, I just want to pay for this just one article? And what if the ability to do that was just already in the browser? All you have to do is click a button. And so it makes payments on the web a lot easier as well. And so it gives alternative ways for people to make money and spend money online.
Do you think when you talk about fiat currency, I think it's kind of funny because people who tell me like crypto is a scam, I ask them if their American Express frequent flyer points are a scam because they've been dealing in fiat currency forever. Are your Delta points a scam? Because all they are a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper. You don't actually have any money. So it's funny when people think about it. But do you think even in this Interledger protocol that I can transfer miles and points more easily without American Express trying to swipe me for $99 every time I make a transaction?
Ted, we haven't thought about that one. I think that's a use case. That's another use case right there. We haven't thought about that one. No one has mentioned that yet.
Woo! Right here on the Shrimp Tank, baby.
Okay, can I please ask, why is Shrimp Tank? I tried to find it online. I tried to look it up myself. Why are you called the Shrimp Tank?
Well, this is a great story. Lee was on the board of Kennesaw State, who started an entrepreneur school, a school for entrepreneurs. I joined the board with him, and Kennesaw State was working hard to get an accreditation to become the first school in the state of Georgia where you could physically get a degree in entrepreneurship. Your child could go to school for 4 years of college, and it would be a bachelor's in entrepreneurship. And along the way, Lee and I met these amazing kids who had all these business ideas, and we were judging contests, and we were helping mentor and give them tutelage. And we said, boy, I don't know if we want to invest in all these kids' businesses, right? Like they do on the Shark Tank, but we sure would love to talk about their businesses.
Okay.
And that born the Shrimp Tank, which wasn't the Shark Tank, because we never invest in people's businesses on here, but we love sharing the stories about entrepreneurs because we all face these challenges and hurdles and struggles, and we can learn from each other. And now some 450 shows later here in Atlanta, 1,000 plus across the country, we hope we've helped change people's lives, you know. And
I also thought, Ted, if I may, Brianna, what's amazing is the vision of the Shrimp Tank 7 years ago kind of took hold across the country. So we have 15 different studios across the country with hosts just like us, which have come in. We train them. They're part of our organization here. We're the parent or mothership, I guess you could say. And the best part is all of our hosts connect with the university in their respective cities. So we have our cities in Boca Raton, Florida, Los Angeles, Seattle, Houston, all over the country. And what's great is they reconnect with the local university. So they're kind of spreading that word, not just in their community, but also at the school system level for kids.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I was trying to figure it out myself. I had to ask. I just had to ask.
in fact, the theme song for the show was a rap song, and there was a white kid that wanted to be a rapper for like his entrepreneur business. He wanted his own rap thing. We said, well, if you can rap so good, why don't you write us the theme song? And he did. He did write a theme song.
That's where your theme song comes from. Okay.
Yeah, that's where the theme song comes from. This kid goes, I could write that rap. And go, well, if you write the rap, we'll use it as the theme song. And so it's never changed in all these years.
Very cool.
Well, as we get close to wrapping up, we want to get a little more into the person, which is you, Briana, and being the CEO. And we have a section called Plead the Fifth, and you get to plead the fifth just one time. You can
just once? Okay.
Just once. We don't want you to plead the fifth, but just in case we ask something that you're not allowed to share, you can plead the fifth.
Okay.
But I have an easy one for you. Taking on this role as CEO, for this organization, what is the one thing that you did not have the foresight? I mean, you've worked in nonprofits before, but what is the most shocking thing from you taking on this role that you've experienced that you didn't see coming?
Ooh, the most shocking thing that I didn't see coming. So when I learned about what Interledger Protocol was, I was like, this is great. Why isn't it everywhere? The most shocking thing that I didn't see coming probably was the resistance from regulators and how hard it has been trying to work with them and get them to understand the technology. Because you can have the best technology in the world, but if you don't have like the right stakeholders on board, it makes your job just a whole lot harder.
Well, this is really exciting stuff. I'm just curious. I'll ask one last question, and then we'll let people know. I'd like you to let people know where they can find you. But you mentioned this regulation, which feels to me like it's more than a hot potato. It's like a smoking hot potato, especially around this world of digital assets, because there's just so much unknown. And I use the term digital assets because it encompasses so many things: NFTs, cryptocurrency, Web 3.0, and how do you think all this will be regulated?
I wish I could answer that question. How would I like it to be regulated? I think at some point in the US, the regulators are going to understand that, okay, we have to really work with these different companies and understand what it is versus just implementing fees on people. And so I think we're coming to a point where, there's been workshops and different pilots and programs, and they're trying to understand it. And I think that right now, where it's kind of the wild, wild west, where it was the wild, wild west, it's really starting to form and, have some shape to it.
Very cool.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. This is exciting stuff. I think people out there have to read about this, because when you talk about entrepreneurial ventures, I mean, one of our biggest challenges in America right now is upward mobility.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot behind it. It all isn't just digital payments.
Mhm.
But that being said, I think, you know, as an entrepreneur, you know, and Lee can probably corroborate this, you know, obviously we've always been capitalist, but it's so important that our country has a strong middle class. And you don't want just a couple of rich people and a lot of like people in poverty. It's not good for our country. So I
Exactly.
want to say from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate what you're doing here, because doors need to be get opened up. Most people do not experience not being able to open up an account with a bank. They're never going to experience it in their entire lifetime. And so I think it's really, really awesome what you're all trying to do here. How can people who are watching this learn more about Interledger, what you're doing, and the foundation itself?
You can go to interledger.org. You can sign up for our quarterly newsletter. And we have a Slack channel that people can go to, and all that information is on our website. Yeah, we have a Slack channel that's open to the public. You come ask questions. People apply, they can ask questions there as well. So.
Well, very cool. Well, thank you so much for enlightening us on this today.
Thank
Not
you.
just the business itself of what the nonprofit is doing, but just this technology, because I encourage people not to be afraid of this. This is, in my view, an inevitability. It's just a matter of time before we're all on digital assets, however that shakes out. So you got to get yourself used to what the future is going to look like. How many of you have been in a store as of late and they said, we don't take cash, which
Yeah.
sounds weird, but they just
Yeah.
don't. And it's just a natural part of the evolution. So thank you so much for your time today. And thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Shrimp Tank.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp